Hi, everyone, and welcome to the South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs Wednesday webinar. I'm Carrie Gruby-Liebarker, the Administrator and Consumer Advocate for the agency, and it's my pleasure to be here today to talk to you about Ditch the Pitch, which is a webinar that is going to go through our latest iteration of our guide for guarding against scams. All right, so let's dive on in to Ditch the Pitch. So one of the areas that we certainly recognized over the last decade since we created Ditch the Pitch, it was July 2015 that we first released this guide for guarding against scams, a comprehensive publication that tried to give everybody the scammers' tactics and techniques and then the defense for each one of those scams. But spoofing is definitely a popular tactic that scammers use. And that's essentially when they mask where they're contacting you from or pretend to be somebody that you don't know, but it's somebody that you would trust. The goal of a spoofing attack is to make something look different than it really is, right? It's generally used to make an attack more believable. And it started with telephone calls. We often would see caller IDs that would look like a phone number was coming from a government agency, the IRS or Washington, D.C., or even state government numbers would pop up. Sometimes people would get telephone calls looking like they were calling themselves, which really freaked some people out when that first started. They felt like somebody was in their home, but they use telephone numbers to make it look like someone else is calling or sending you a text message. And it's really easy to do. There's stuff that you can buy to plug into your phone that allows you to mask your phone number and put in what phone number you want it to make it look like it's coming from, which assists, unfortunately, the scammers in seeming more believable. But now spoofing certainly applies to every form of contact that's out there. It could be emails where they create an email message with a fake address, hoping to trick you into thinking it came from somebody other than the scammer. It can be computer pop-ups with messages claiming to be security software, banks or other services, social media and websites. Scammers can easily fake a social media profile or website by stealing pictures or other information online. And then just, any government agency, charity, business, the list really goes on and on. They're just trying to use well-known names of anybody so they can gain your trust and perpetuate whatever scam it is that they're wanting to engage in. Phishing. This is one of the most popular type of scams that we see, and it's often through fake emails and fake text messages. And it's where a fraudster who is often using spoofing, right? They're trying to pretend to be a person or organization that you know, and they send an email or a text that asks for personal information, or they may want you to click on a link. There could be a link in the email or an attachment to that email, but ultimately they're just using manipulation and deception to have the recipient, the consumer, do what it is that they want them to do. And as a part of this process, if you click on that link or if you provide the information, they're trying to steal passwords, financial account numbers, other personal information, or get you to download a Trojan or malware if you click that link. And I'm just going to make mention of this one text, that second text that popped up, the "Hi, how are you?" which we often see that in romance scams, right? So somebody reaches out and they're like, "Oh, you're not who I thought you were," and they engage you in conversation, and that often opens up the gate. A simple 4-word text opening up the gate to where some people lose thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars through the ultimate scam. All right, so how do you spot these fake emails and texts? Because phishing emails and texts, they can range from obviously fake to very convincing. So here are some signs here. So you want to look for generic greetings. If it's an organization that you actually know or one that you work with, or if it's a loved one, these, if they're using spoofing, sometimes they may try and pose as someone in your family, a grandson, a granddaughter, or a mother or a father. So if the message starts with "Dear customer" or some other kind of generic greeting, that's a red flag. That's a sign that it's a scam. Act now or else. So plenty of emails will claim that you want a prize, that your account has been compromised. Some are going to ask that you confirm or update or verify personal information or logins, or else you're not going to be able to access that service. But no matter what the tactic is that they use, they want you to act now. They're trying to put on that pressure. And then sometimes scammers have some information about you and they use that to make themselves seem more believable as well, right? So they could have gotten that information from a security breach. They could have gotten additional information about you from your social media posts. We post entirely too much about ourselves on social media. And that's called spear phishing. Whenever they have that additional data point about you that they can use to make themselves more believable, it's spear phishing. And then something else, just an added little tip on spotting fake emails and texts, is the domain doesn't match. So you want to look at everything after the @ sign in an email address. You can hover over it and you'll often see a misspelling, or it'll just look like a totally different email address than where you would expect it to come from. So if they're posing as the government, there's no .gov at the end of that. It's just some long email string. That's just another tip. So what do you do and what do you don't do whenever an unexpected message is received? We call these cold calls, even if it's not a telephone call, or if somebody's reaching out to you by email or text or on social or a pop-up. If it's a communication that you did not initiate, it's a cold contact. So you do not want to reply to any message that asks for personal or financial information. Do not open any attachments or click on any links, and do not call or text back a number contained in the message. Instead, you want to find a telephone number or contact information for the business or the person, whomever it is that they're claiming to be from, on your own, whether it's the phone book or doing a search online or whatever else, to let them know about this contact and verify it if you don't think outright that it's a scam. And then as far as the do's, you want to make sure you're using antivirus software and a firewall, and make sure to regularly update your device's software. Go ahead and set it so that it does automatic updates, and that's including for your telephone, right? We want to make sure that we have those updates. We actually here at the Department of Consumer Affairs had gotten notice a couple weeks ago about our cell phone provider, and that we needed to get the most recent version of that software because there had been some vulnerabilities that were identified. So you want to always make sure that you're doing that. And then of course, carefully review your personal and financial statements as they come in. That is the sign, or that's the way that you can find signs of identity theft or somebody else is using your information. You want to make sure that everything on those statements, your bank statements, your medical statements, your benefit statements, all of those transactions you identify with and they're not fraudulent. And of course, review your credit report at least once a year by going to annualcreditreport.com or calling 877-322-8228. And checking that credit report again, fine-tooth comb, making sure you recognize everything, including your addresses on there, because that again could be a sign of identity theft. All right, so now that we have a tactic and spoofing on the books, we know what that is. We know the most popular scam of phishing that they use and what we should and should not do when we get those unexpected messages. So now we're going to talk about some popular scams that we've seen at the Department of Consumer Affairs, some within the last decade, some that go back to our inception. When we talk about lottery scams, those have been around for a very long time, or door-to-door solicitations. That was one of the things that the Consumer Protection Code helped with in giving a 3-day right to cancel there. That was, it was seen as one of the most helpful provisions because of the door-to-door sales issues that were going on in the mid-70s. So we're going to go over the scammer's pitch, and we're going to address how you can defend against their scheme, and that phishing and spoofing can be used by a scammer in any of these types of scams that we're seeing. All right, online shopping. Scammers pretend to be legitimate online sellers. They may create fake websites or fake advertisements on a legit retail site. Just because it's online does not mean it's been vetted by the third party who's letting the vendors sell their particular items. And then often with online shopping scams, we will see prices that are too good to be true. So how do you defend against an online shopping scam? You stick to trusted, well-established websites, right? Always shop on at sites that you are aware of and make sure they're secure. You want to look for that S after the HTTP and the lock to the left of the URL. Only use a credit card when shopping online or use secure payment services. And so a lot of folks don't know that credit cards provide additional protections when you're shopping online, right? So you have the right to dispute credit card transactions and are only liable under federal law for up to $50 if you do it in a timely manner. And most credit card companies these days, they have a lot of red flag programs in place to know when fraud is being done. And so they might even notify you before you realize that a fraudulent purchase was made. But the good thing about a credit card is you're not out the money right away. If you use your debit card online to shop and somebody steals that information, they can drain your bank account, and it could take 4 to 6 weeks for an investigation before you may get those funds back. With a credit card, you get your statement, you're reviewing it online, maybe daily, some people, because we have that access. And so you're able to notify the credit card company before you even have to make a payment, so you're not out any funds there. And then you want to make sure you're reviewing your financial statements and keeping your receipts as well. Dating and romance scams. So unfortunately, this is one of the fastest growing scams that we've seen over the last decade. And we've also seen a lot of money lost to dating and romance scams. People are lonely and hopeful for love, especially later in life. So oftentimes we'll see these scam artists create a fake online identity to gain a victim's love and trust. They'll steal pictures. A lot of times they'll say they're military members or somebody with a high status abroad. Sometimes they may even claim to be like a former high school classmate of yours that you may or may not remember. And then they may pretend to have common interests to try and reel you in, to make you think, oh, we're made for each other. We like the same things. We both love family and, have those common areas of interest. So how can you defend against romance scams? Talk to someone you trust about your new love interest. Try to have conversations with them outside of the platform. So if you're on a dating website or if you're on social media or something, you may want to talk to them. Set up a time to actually speak to them on the phone, because a lot of times they won't want to do so. Scammers use a wealth of excuses and sob stories to try and get cash from you, so you certainly do not want to send your hard-earned money to someone that you have never met. Look out for poor grammar and spelling too. Whoops, fast forwarded a little bit. Because those are often signs of any scam, right? Poor grammar and or spelling. If somebody's using British spelling, because a lot of folks, when they have English as a second language, potentially do not use American English, it's British English that they're using. So there could be some misspellings there that could be kind of some red flags for you there. But the main purpose of a dating or romance scam is to get money from whoever the consumer is or who the victim is. And so that's why the majority of these tips are related to that. So be skeptical of anybody who asks for money. And then we have tech support scams. So scammers will contact you claiming to be computer technicians that are working with well-known companies, again, using spoofing to try and make their claim seem more legitimate. They will tell you that your device or your account needs to be updated or fixed, and then they ask for remote access to your device or want you to pay for protection. And then they may also want you to share a verification code there too, right? So you certainly do not want to give remote access to anybody that you don't know, especially if they are cold contacting you just out of the blue with that. So what's the defense? Do not give remote access to your device, most certainly. Never call a number on a security pop-up warning. Again, it'll give you the name of a company. You can try and find that information, or you can just go ahead and close your PC. If it's a laptop, take it to a local computer store for them to take a look at it. Or if you know you have antivirus protection, you can contact that company and let them know what has happened and get their advice on next steps. Don't click any links. And if you need tech support, again, look for a company's contact information on software package, on the receipts. And don't trust online search results, especially when you're trying to find um, assistance with your tech issues. Scammers will often place online ads and then they pay to boost their search so that their information goes above legitimate companies. And then of course, never give control of your computer, never give passwords to a third party who calls you out of the blue. They're just trying to get your money or your personal information. Investment and cryptocurrency scams. So we had certainly seen investment scams before the last decade, but not cryptocurrency scams. So here we have scammers who are promoting fake investment opportunities. They may reach out through social media and dating sites even to encourage people to invest in this once of a lifetime opportunity. And they promise huge returns, and they may claim your profit is guaranteed or that there's no risk. And sometimes we've even seen with these scams that people will initially get some return. And so then they go and tell their friends and family that they should invest as well, but it's very much short-lived there too. So that kind of keeps people on the hook. The defense for investment and crypto scams is to know that legitimate offers will not disappear overnight. You should not feel pressured to make a quick decision. Ask for information in writing before you commit to any investment, whether it's this type or something else. And if you have to recruit your friends and family to get involved, to send money offshore, if you're supposed to open an e-currency account to transfer money, those are all signs of scams. And especially think twice if you're told your profit is guaranteed, that there's no risk, and don't trust testimonials. Just like advertisements online can be boosted, these can be fake, and you can't verify online testimonials. So if somebody is promising big profits or quick returns on investment, certainly talk to somebody you trust, a family member or an investment professional before deciding to give them your hard-earned money. Fake debt collectors. So this is something that we have seen over time as well. I would say probably, one of the reasons the Department of Consumer Affairs was created was because credit didn't really become popular until the 60s, the mid to late 60s. And then we've certainly seen that pick up in different kind of creditors come into the marketplace over the last 50 years. And so fake debt collectors is definitely an area that we get complaints on here at the department. So here the scammer is going to try and get you to pay or settle a debt that you supposedly owe. They may ask you just to pay a fraction, but do it immediately, and then the debt will be forgiven. And they can even have your personal information making the claim seem real. Again, security breaches could be one way, whether it's some kind of external attack that released your information. So they may know that you have an account with a certain bank or financial institution, and so that's who they're going to claim to be. Or they may know that you have a certain amount of debt at one point in your life with a particular company because of a security breach, which we saw last fiscal year, which our fiscal years are July 1 through June 30. We saw the most security breaches reported and people affected in quite a long time. I think it was since 2012 or 2013, high number of security breaches. So how do you defend against these fake debt collectors? So just know that a legitimate debt collector will not make threats to put you in jail. There is no debtor's prison, and they will not threaten to contact your employer, your family, or your friends. Ask for something in writing so that you can verify the claim. Federal law actually requires debt collectors to send you a letter about the debt within a certain time frame after they contact you. And check your credit report to see if the debt is there. Not all creditors will report on credit reports, but usually if it's in collections, it'll show up there. So again, you can get a free copy of your report at annualcreditreport.com or by calling 877-322-8228. And all of this information is in the Ditch the Pitch guide. Home repair scams. So here we have where the scammer may offer a discounted deal. They may claim that they have leftover materials from another job right down the street, or they may show up after a disaster. They say there's something wrong that they can fix. They just may say, I was walking by and I noticed your roof had a couple of, you know, spots that need to be addressed. Or they may say, your neighbor down the street had this issue with their front porch or their windows, and I see kind of the same thing here. So they'll let you know. You may not, again, you're not looking for them, they're looking for you. But again, we have this act now mentality. They want you to make a decision now, and then they want you to pay for their services up front. So how do you defend? You never pay in full upfront, and don't pay by cash or by wire transfer. So, cash, they can just walk away with it, and then you don't have any record of making that payment either, right? So checks are helpful. And then for credit cards, they have to have, if they're able to accept credit cards, there's certain things on their end that they have to have as a business, different checks and balances too. And then wire transfer, it's just like paying cash, and people can pick it up anywhere in the world, right? And not be tracked. Make sure you get all the details of the work that is going to be done, and that it's in a written contract, that you understand, that you get a completed copy of that contract as well. And check with the Department of Labor Licensing and Regulation to verify that whoever you're turning your hard-earned money over to has the proper licenses. You should also check with your county or your city as well. There's a lot of contractor licenses that are required at the local level. And so even if somebody doesn't have a license with LLR, they may have to have one at your county or your city. You should also ask to see if they have a bond and get any information there. And of course, it's always helpful to get recommendations from friends or family members, doing that background search to check for complaints at our office, as well as with the Better Business Bureau, just a general internet search to see if there's anything out there that could be a red flag for you. Grandparent and family emergency scams. So this is something we've certainly seen pop up and become more popular over the last decade. So this is what the scammer does. They'll call somebody and pretend to be a grandchild. And it doesn't just have to be a grandparent situation anymore. It could be a family member, it could be a niece. They really are looking at social media to make these familial connections, or looking online to make those connections. So it could run the gamut. And so they'll say that they're in trouble, that they need bail money, or they need money for some other reason. And it could be a lawyer saying that they need immediate payment to help your family member, a third party saying that, your family member has been put in jail, so they ask them to contact you. But then they also might tell you or warn you not to call the police, and don't tell anybody else in the family because they're embarrassed, or it's just going to make the situation worse. They don't want you to reach out to anybody, and it's that act now scenario as well. So you want to verify that it is your family member by contacting them at a number belongs to them. Some folks are also doing code words these days, and so it's like something that only they would know, so that if the situation ever popped up, you would say, well, what's our family code word? If that person was not aware of what that was, then it would be the sign that it's a scam. You also want to reach out to a family member to check out the story. You don't want to keep it to yourself. Resist pressure to send money quickly and secretly, and check your social media settings and limit what you share publicly. Again, some of our information is already out there. If you ever do a reverse phone number search or something like that, you'll see entirely too much information is out there from public records that people have compiled into these different search engines. But you do have the capability to limit what you can limit. And so we're asking you to take that charge and limit and be aware of what you put on social. Survey and giveaway scams. So these are scams that really have popped up just in the last couple years through all the different kind of social media platforms that we see. And we often see our younger population targeted by these scams. The Federal Trade Commission, which is the Federal Consumer Protection Agency, they compile scam reports and identity theft reports from state agencies like our office, as well as the Better Business Bureau, local offices and all different kinds of law enforcement agencies, and compile it into one area to help consolidate and assist with enforcement and tracking of trends. And their last report showed that I think it's 18 to 29-year-olds are more or were victims of more scams than our older population, but they just don't lose as much money because they don't have any money. And a lot of these survey and giveaway scams are, you know, $50, $100. They're the smaller amount, but if you get more folks to bite, you're getting a good return too, and these scam artists are certainly utilizing it. So for a survey and giveaway scam, there's a call, a text, an email, an online ad, or some kind of social media post that asks somebody to fill out a poll or a questionnaire. The scammer may be impersonating well-known businesses, again, using a spoofing kind of technique there, and they may require entering personal information or paying an upfront fee in order to collect the prize. So how do you defend? Don't click on links or respond to unexpected messages. If you think it could be legitimate, contact the company directly using website or phone number that you know is real. And then never send money to claim a prize. I mean, that applies to lottery scams as much as it applies to this. You should not have to pay upfront to receive a prize. And also you have to pay. Speaking of lottery, I don't think we're covering that in this presentation today. That is one of our, you know, oldie but goodies that keep on ticking. And you got to play the lottery to win the lottery. You know, and a lot of people will get Australian lottery or Canadian lottery or whatever notices, and they never played it, but it's also illegal under federal law to play a foreign lottery. So it's just a different iteration of an old scam. So let me check before we move on to the red flags portion to see if we have any questions. All right, not seeing any, so we will rock on, but feel free to input any as they may arise. All right, so the red flags are the same in a lot of these scams. So we may not be able to know every scam that's out there, but if you know these red flags, you can hopefully avoid getting scammed. So here's the most common ones. We've talked about them throughout. Scammers pretend to be someone you know or recognize. Again, that can be a government agency, a business, or other organization. They want to act like people you trust. It can be that friend on social media. They just want you to trust them. They just want their scam to seem more believable, and so that helps. Scammers say there's a problem or a prize, right? Whether you're in trouble with the government that you owe money to, taxes, every time tax season comes around, it's you haven't filed your taxes. And then after tax season, it switches to you're being audited. And a lot of times it's, you know, somebody had contacted us once and said the IRS called and wanted $500 in Google Play gift cards. IRS doesn't want Google Play gift cards. I mean, that's, you know, the type of payment certainly is a red flag, which we're going to talk about as well. Some scammers say there's a problem with a financial account. You need to verify information, you know, or else you're not going to be able to access that account anymore. And then, of course, you've won the lottery or some other kind of prize. And they pressure you to act immediately. They don't want you to have time to think and go through and be like, wait a minute, this doesn't sound right. And they try sometimes to threaten, whether that's to arrest you, to sue you, to take away licenses. Sometimes it's deport you. You know, they say you're not going to be able to access services. We've heard a Social Security scam where people are like, it was your Social Security information was found in a vehicle that was used in a murder, and so now you're not going to be able to use your social to get services and things. I mean, they'll say whatever they can to scare you into falling and doing what they want you to do. And then scammers tell you to pay in a specific way, and those payment types are difficult to trace. So some include wire transfers, prepaid debit cards, gift cards, cryptocurrency, and money transfer services. All of that is like paying cash. When it's gone, it's very difficult to get back. And then some will even send you a fake check. We see this a lot with job scams or overpayment scams when people are selling online through Craigslist or some kind of individual selling site. They'll tell you to deposit it and then just send them back either the overage or whatever else. You do that before the bank fully processes it, and then after you've sent the money, the check bounces. All right, so some other tips for you. We got some digital device tips, and a lot of them stem from CISA, which is the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security agency, as well as the National Cybersecurity Alliance that has a website, Stay Safe Online. And there's different keys to protect your information. We at the department are the administrator and enforcer of the identity theft protection statutes in South Carolina. And so it certainly goes in line with trying to protect yourself. You're trying to protect your personal information, which then would prevent you from being scammed, right? And then we celebrate National Cybersecurity Awareness every October. So if you're interested in this topic, come back in October and we'll have plenty of webinars on it as well. So here are some ways that you can keep your digital devices safe. First, you want to think before you click. You want to recognize that when you see a link, that it may not be legitimate, especially if it's coming from a cold call. It could be an attempt to get your sensitive information or install malware. You want to update your software. Again, outdated software makes it easier for scammers to hack your device, and so you want to have automatic updates turned on, and if you see something pop up saying that you have a software update that is ready, act promptly, don't delay. Use strong passwords. Do not use the same passwords for multiple accounts. There are some cool new technologies that when you enter passwords either on your phone or on the computer, it'll tell you whether or not that password has been leaked in a breach and that you need to change it. But certainly if you get a breach notice, make sure that you change your passwords, that they're strong, that they're long and different. And you can use a password manager to generate the passwords for you. They create interesting, complex ones. I like to use Bible verses and just mess them up. That helps me, on two different fronts. I just mess with the words and mess with the numbers and things like that. But you just want to make sure, of course, that you remember them. Folks ask us all the time about password managers and if we would recommend any of them. And we would recommend going to the Stay Safe Online website. It's a great resource to learn more about password managers. Just do your research on them. Nothing is 100% safe, but you want to make sure that whatever product, if you do decide to choose one, will meet your needs and has a good reputation. Enable multi-factor or two-factor authentication. Most banks and other online accounts have this capability, and it just makes it to where you need more than a password. And sometimes it's via a text that you'll get a code that you have to enter, or an email where you would get a code that you have to enter as well. It's just that extra step after entering in your password that verifies that it's actually you who is the one logging into that account. So there's the different ways. It could be a passcode, be an authentication app, that's another way, or a security key, or something you are, like a scan of your fingerprint, retina, or face. We see that on Apple phones. And this is just the different kinds of factors, the knowledge factor, possession factor, and inherence factor that they may utilize in the two-factor authentication process. So we've talked a lot about unwanted calls and text messages and what to do to figure out whether or not it's a scam, but here are some options for you to get less of those calls. Don't answer unknown numbers. When we go out and about, sometimes I'll hear folks say, I told them I was going to report them to the police, or I just wanted to mess with them too. Well, if you answer the phone, they know you are a live person and that phone number is legitimate. So whether you're just messing with them and you don't actually fall victim to the scam, your number will still get perpetuated throughout the scam rings because they know it's a real one. Sign up for the Do Not Call registry. This is through the Federal Trade Commission. We have the information in the Ditch the Pitch guide on how you can do that. It does not apply to all calls. Political calls are exempt from it. There's existing business relationship restrictions, but it does cut down on those who do comply with the Do Not Call registry. It'll cut down on calls from those businesses. You can use call blocking resources. The Federal Trade Commission, gosh, I think it has been 10 years or so, did a competition for folks to figure out how to block scam calls or unwanted calls. And I forget what they're called, it's like spam zapper or something. And But now our cell phones will often tell us whether or not it's a scam call coming through, and that's due to some Federal Communications Commission's changes that they've had. They had a campaign called Stir Shaken, where they've been trying to eliminate the ability for scam artists to get their calls to consumers, and gave additional tools and ability for telephone providers to stop those calls before they get to the customers. And so this would include, if there's an unassigned telephone number, but all of a sudden there's a million calls being placed or 1,000 calls being placed from this number, the carrier is now allowed to stop those calls. Or if it's a residential number and it looks like there's 1,000 calls going out from that number, then the carrier can stop those calls. So those two things have certainly helped. But then you want to report junk calls and texts, and we have that information in the guide as well. Whenever you get a text, you can forward it to spam, which is 7726. And then if you get a phishing email, it's reportphishing@apwg.org. But again, that information is actually on page 7 of the Ditch the Pitch guide. You can also opt out of pre-screened offers. You might get offers for credit cards, insurance that say you've been pre-screened and pre-qualified. Essentially, they have done a soft pull on your credit report and decided that you look like a customer that they would like to have, and so they send you out that information. But you can opt out of those by going to optoutprescreen.com or calling 888-5-OPT-OUT. All right, I'm going to check to see if there's any questions before we move. We are getting closer to the end of the presentation. Okay, still no questions. Well, nope, I just saw one pop up as I closed it. Hold on. Okay. So somebody wants to know, if they are being contacted by a scammer, does it imply that you're on a scammer's network? So there could be different reasons how somebody got your information. It could be a small scale scam, or it could be a national or an international type scam. They could have gotten your information through a dishonest employee, or it could be a security breach, or it could be a mistake. You may be the John Smith that they weren't looking for. So it doesn't necessarily imply that you're on the scammer's network. So just taking that action to not answer those telephone calls where you don't know what they're coming from, and to do the opt-out and the do not call, that will certainly help you eliminate some of those contacts. So somebody was saying that sometimes the operating system and certain apps don't mesh. And so you would need to get a new phone to obtain an operating system for updates, and the smartphones are expensive. Yeah, and they take up space too, right? Like the apps take up space. But that, I think, is another reason why the Federal Communications Commission has armed these carriers with the ability to notify you up front that a certain call may be a scam or a spam call. Great questions and comments. All right, so what if a scammer gets your information? So we've talked about this repeatedly. You want to check your credit report. Annualcreditreport.com is the only source for your free credit reports. It's authorized by federal law. And the law says you get one free credit report from each of the major credit reporting agencies, which are Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, every 12 months. But since COVID, the credit reporting agencies are permitting one free report from each of them every week. Don't know if you want to see it that frequently, but you have the opportunity to do so. It will not contain your credit score, at least, and then you want to at least review it carefully once a year. Again, going through it with a fine-tooth comb. We have a separate publication that's on credit reports that has a checklist in the different areas of your credit report. It explains what should be contained there, and then how to look for information that may be a sign of identity theft, or that a scammer got your information and may be using it. You can place a fraud alert on your credit report. It lasts 1 year, and it alerts businesses that may be viewing your report to take extra steps to verify your identity. You do not have to be a victim of identity theft to utilize this service, and it's a one call that's all scenario. If you call one of the 3 major credit reporting agencies, they have to notify the other 2 that that you want the fraud alert on there. And so then if you want to go get a product or a service where a credit report is being pulled, they have to take that extra step to verify it's you. And that could be, you showing them a bill, or you showing them an additional ID, or your car insurance paper, or things like that. It's just that extra step. But it, again, only applies to the opening of new accounts or new services where that credit report is pulled. So it's a helpful tool for sure, but it's not a silver bullet. And then you have a security freeze that's available. It's free to place or lift, and it stops anybody from accessing your credit report. So if you want to go get a product, credit reports are pulled not just to get loans or, to go buy cars. It's pulled to get a cell phone. It could be pulled to get a job. It could be pulled because you're going to get a new apartment or a home. So it would stop anybody who wants to access your credit report from being able to do so. They would just get a notice that there's a security freeze in place. But when you want to apply for new credit or a product or service where a credit report is going to be pulled, then you can thaw it out for a specific amount of time. You do have to contact each one of the 3 credit reporting agencies individually to place the freeze. Hopefully one day, now that it's a federal law, it used to just be a state option, but a few years back, the feds put it in place. And so you would think now that it's in place at the federal level that the credit reporting agencies would potentially create a one-stop shop kind of situation like they do with fraud alerts, but we'll have to wait for that one. Left to be seen. You also want to make sure you're monitoring your financial accounts. Set up account alerts. These are free with your financial institutions. They can let you know, you can kind of set a purchase level amount. So if purchases are made on your account above $50, you can get a text or an email. Or if the balance of your account gets to a certain level, you can get that kind of an alert. If there's a new login from an unknown device, or is this you? Somebody's, logging in, is this you who's doing that? Also, you can have credit report change emails from different credit cards who are tracking your credit report and scores for free these days. So you can sign up for those services if they offer them. You can also create a My Social Security account. So this will allow you to check out your benefits. It can also let you see if somebody is using your Social Security number for a job. You can look at your statement and see the employment that's listed, and make sure that you are aware of all of it. So even if you're not getting Social Security checks, it's important to set up your own account before someone else does that for you. And you can go to ssa.gov/myaccount to do so. If you think you have been a victim of a scam or identity theft, contact us. Again, toll-free number is 800-922-1594 from South Carolina numbers. Otherwise, it's 803-734-4200. And you can go to our website at consumer.sc.gov. We have a scam reporting form as well as an identity theft reporting form. And we have all sorts of information, the basic steps if you are a victim of identity theft, and then the toolkit check sheets that have the step for the specific kind of ID theft. It depends, the different things that you have to do depending on the type of ID theft that has occurred. And there's all sorts of different steps. And so we have those checklists on who to contact and their contact information there. And of course, you can get a copy of Ditch the Pitch, our guide to guarding against scams. It's on the front page of our website. You can also click order free brochures, and you can get up to 50 of those. We'll mail them to you or drop them off to you so that you can hand them out to your customers, your constituents, or to your friends. We really want folks to beware and share this information. We also have Ditch the Pitch Bingo. So it's a bingo game. We'll travel across the state to provide. We have little Xerxes and everything that go along with it. But our Ditch the Pitch Bingo goes over these tips that we have as we call a number. So it'd be like B32. Make sure to never give out your personal information to a cold caller. And that's how we play the game. It's been pretty popular since we rolled it out. I think it's been 2 years. So it's an exciting opportunity to have fun, but get the knowledge that we need, the tools we need to prevent becoming a victim of a scam. Thank you for joining us. Hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.